Here to break down those stories and more, we have WBEZ politics editor Tony Arnold, Chicago Tribune, Cook County, and Chicago government reporter Quig, and Daily Line City Hall reporter Erin Hegarty. Hi, everyone. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Good to see you. Remember that you can now watch the weekly news recap live on the WBEZ and YouTube pages, WBEZ Facebook rather, and YouTube pages. All right, I want to start on Capitol Hill, folks, where House Republicans still haven't come to a consensus on a new speaker. The 12th vote on whether California Congressman McCarthy will win is around halfway through, and it appears he will not have the votes needed, though he is making some headway. Shocker. AD, what is your reaction to this ongoing saga?
I don't want to say enjoyed following this from afar. From like a historical perspective, it's so interesting to watch this play out. This is like a 100-year occurrence. And when they surpassed the 9th vote, it became like a 150-year or something crazy occurrence. Obviously, Democrats have enjoyed the chaos, bringing popcorn, recreating some of our favorite GIFs of all time. But it's difficult to watch, too, because there's stuff that Congress can and should be working on that they're not because they just can't reach resolution on this.
Your reaction, Tony?
Yeah, I'm much like the rest of the country. I can't stop and I won't stop watching this thing. It's not even my job. It's like I have enough to watch between City Hall and Springfield and County Board, and I don't usually watch Congress, and I haven't watched as much C-SPAN as I have this week.
In the last couple of days.
Just reading 435 names, and I'm just like, oh, what's this one?
You know what I learned is that until they choose a speaker, C-SPAN can kind of go rogue. Because once the speaker is sat, they have to focus only on the person who is speaking. But now they can show us all the crowd shots and kind of the side action. So I'm kind of rooting for this to continue because C-SPAN is going wild.
Speaking of side action, two Democrats, as you mentioned, AD, Congresswomen Jan Schakowsky and Robin Kelly, they brought buckets of popcorn. Of course, we are talking about Garrett's. They brought it to the House floor. Very Chicago, Erin.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just find like the numbers fun as well. They brought like 2 buckets containing a combined like 120 cups of popcorn.
Which they said was
149
like
people.
BS.
Like
I can eat way more popcorn than that single serving.
Right. So I'm wondering
Dixie cups, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I'm wondering like how it was determined who gets how much popcorn. Can you come back for seconds?
It's determined on seniority and committee assignment.
You know, when you've got a bucket of Garrett's, it's not going to last long, right? Their House colleagues devoured the buckets within hours. So a nice little tip for the future: always bring twice as much as you think you're going to need when it comes to popcorn. Right? Mm-hmm. What is your Garrett's order, Tony?
Chicago mix.
Yeah.
Yep.
What about you, AD?
Oh yeah. Chicago mix. Can't go wrong.
Same. Love the combination.
Yeah.
I'll just say the same thing. Chicago mix. Well, Tony, one of the GOP holdouts here is Mary Miller of Illinois. Can you talk about what's going on there?
I wish I could, but she won't answer questions about why she's doing what she's doing, despite multiple days of that. And that's not uncharacteristic for her. She doesn't respond to questions from the press almost ever. And this has been routine for her in the last 2 years that she's been in this office. But Mary Miller, she's from downstate Illinois, central Illinois, defeated Rodney Davis in the primary in last year's primary election due to redistricting. They were put up against each other. And
well, I'm actually hearing now, Tony, she switched her vote to McCarthy.
That's right.
On this latest ballot underway.
It does not appear that it's enough. There's been several people who have flipped. She is one of them, but it doesn't look like flipped in favor of McCarthy. But it doesn't look like it's enough. I guess they're still doing the roll call right now.
Yeah.
But again, she hasn't explained what she wants, why she wants it, what she's doing, what caused her to flip, and so we're left to speculate. Which I'm not going to do too much of, as to her reasoning and what it is that she's doing.
Yeah. The delay in choosing a House Speaker, it means that hundreds of representatives cannot be sworn in. That includes freshman Congresswoman Delia Ramirez, who represents Illinois' 3rd District. She, like other elected officials, they had their families flown out to see them take the oath of office, and that still has not happened. Do you expect that we will finally get a speaker today, Erin?
I hope so. But also... so that things can move on, I hope so. But they did need, I think 15, maybe more than that, people to switch their vote. So that seems like that's going to be kind of a difficult thing to master. But You mentioned families coming out, and then we got to see, video of like people's children on the floor and people changing diapers, like while this is all going on. And another thing that was brought up, I think on someone brought it up on Twitter, like you choose a special outfit for that day. Mm-hmm. Like I'd be really angry if like I have to keep coming up with my like, swearing in outfit that's going to be in all these photos.
I wore suffragette white for a reason.
Right. So I hope so. I hope this moves forward, but the unfettered kind of access to what's going on via C-SPAN is fun.
It is addictive. What do you think, AD? Is this House Speaker drama, is it keeping her and the other freshmen from just enjoying their first day in Congress, or is this maybe just a crash course in political shenanigans that they're going to have to deal with in Washington?
I think it can be both. And the argument I've heard a lot is this is what the next couple of years are going to look like with the Republican majority, with the Republican Party as divided as it is. And a lot of the pushback from the minority group that is not supporting Kevin McCarthy, folks have argued, is that they don't want government to work. So there might be other instances, not where everything is kind of ground to a halt, but things are a lot more drawn out and contentious than they ordinarily would be if there was more party unity. So I think it's both a good crash course in how government works and doesn't, and also an annoying reason to have to change your outfit and book additional hotel stays for your family.
Is. This is Reset. I'm Sasha-Ann Simons. You're tuned into our weekly news recap where we bring you context and analysis to the biggest local and state stories of the week. Our panel today includes WBEZ's Tony Arnold, Erin Hegarty from the Daily Line, and AD Quig from the Chicago Tribune. And remember that you can watch us do this weekly news recap live right now on the WBEZ Facebook and YouTube pages. Also, you can check out the video live stream on Reset's Facebook page if you're there. All right, let's leave D.C. and take our popcorn with us and bring it closer to home, gang. Illinois lawmakers are back in Springfield this week for a short lame duck session. They came back with a couple of top issues in mind. What are those, Tony?
One is banning assault weapons. We're on just past the 6-month anniversary of the mass shooting in Highland Park from the July 4th parade. Not to mention just the gun violence that has plagued Chicago and other large cities around the state. And so late last night, I got to watch the whole House floor debate, all 90 minutes of it at around midnight.
Lucky you.
Lucky me. About they ultimately voted to pass, the House voted to pass an assault weapons ban. The Senate, it does not appear, will be taking that up today. So that's still left up in the air, and they have until Inauguration Day on Wednesday to do something on this. And then the other thing is there was some added protections for out-of-state doctors or patients who get abortions or do the procedure of an abortion, so that they could not be penalized in the state of Illinois for performing an abortion here or receiving an abortion here if the state from which they come from wishes to penalize them in some way.
Well, earlier this week, we had State Representative Bob Morgan on the show. He is the sponsor of that bill banning assault weapons. Here's what he had to say.
There are a number of elements here that we introduced just over a month and a half ago that provides for a lot of different changes to our gun laws. I was put in charge right after the shooting of the House Firearms Safety and Reform Working Group. So even though that's kind of wordy, it is what it sounds like. We're trying to address gun laws and how they relate to gun violence in Illinois.
With a supermajority in Springfield, would you say that this is a slam dunk for Democrats?
No, I would not. And the roll call last night shows just how close this is. They need 60 votes. They got 64 last night. One of them was a Republican. And so it's going to be largely Democrats, but and there were some last-minute changes last night. They took out the age requirement about being 21 years old to help get this passed. There was some issue about whether retired police officers could have basically these types of guns, and that got taken out. So there's this, and with the Senate not taking this up today, I would say that this is not a slam dunk in the next couple of days. It might proceed on throughout the rest of the year. I think there might be some version of this that passes in this year, whether it's in the next week or not. And we're here next week talking about what passed or didn't is another matter. But I think that eventually there would be some version of this that could go.
Yeah.
But right now it's because what they've done, and part of it is it's not just a ban on assault weapons. This bill, it identifies about a few dozen specific guns that are going to be forbidden from being sold or owned in Illinois. But then there's other measures about banning how many bullets can be in a magazine.
Right.
There's issues about
banning those carrying more than 12 rounds.
The switches that turn basically a semi-automatic gun into an automatic gun and let you fire 20 bullets in 1 second. There's things like that are in this as well. And so there was some debate last night about, well, how much things beyond just the forbidding some of these guns from being sold in Illinois should there be in this thing. So if it doesn't go in the next few days, there might be some discussions about how much more do we want to add on to this.
And as we mentioned, that other issue that lawmakers are focusing on is abortion. Illinois has already got many abortion protections on the books. What else are lawmakers considering?
Well, part of that is this is another measure that was controversial last night. It did pass the House. Again, the Senate still needs to get Senate approval before it gets to the governor's desk. And in this, it's not just in this one particular bill. They added other things besides just these protections for medical providers or patients who have an abortion in Illinois. There's also things about having insurance cover medication for gender-affirming care. Or having insurance cover medication for HIV treatment, clarifying who can provide procedure perform the procedure of doing an abortion, as opposed to medicine that does that. And so there's things beyond that again were kind of the subject of discussion. I don't know if I'd call it a debate, but discussion. It gives you a little bit of insight into what's been going on outside of the chambers, and whether this again goes in the next 4 days versus the next 4 months. I'm not sure which. I imagine there will be some version of this that does go, with Democrats having supermajority and a governor that wants these things. That can go a long way. It's just a matter of figuring out what exactly is in this.
Yeah. Well, something else. When the new General Assembly is sworn in next week in Springfield, the state is actually going to get its first two lawmakers from Gen Z, right? Both of them just being 23 years old. You covered Springfield for over a decade, Tony, so I'm wondering if you can remember during any period of time other lawmakers that were that young.
I remember 23. You have to be 21 to be in the legislature, so there's not much wiggle room there.
Avery Bourne was
I can remember being young 10 years ago. and I can remember someone being younger than me being, I think appointed to the position.
Okay.
And I was thinking, oh, man, I'm not that old, am I?
Well, Erin, what do we think? Should we expect a new approach from this new generation, you think?
I think it'll be interesting. I think they'll bring perspectives that maybe current lawmakers, whether, they're in their mid-30s or 50, 60, have never thought about. I think it's kind of exciting to see younger people not just getting appointed, but being elected, and the fact that they're both 23, but one is a Democrat from the Chicago suburbs, and she's Muslim, and she wears a hijab, and the other is from Dixon, and he's a white Christian man. So
Nabila Saeed and Brad Fritz.
Yeah.
And you guys are seeing this, I think it's at City Council too,
totally.
where there's in local government here in Illinois and in Chicago, there's been a changing of the guard, especially with Michael Madigan being gone. He's 80 years old. Now it's Chris Welsh who's the House Speaker. He's in his 50s. Don Harmon in his 50s and leading the Senate, as opposed to John Cullerton or Emil Jones. And in the City Council, you're seeing the same thing. The people who are around for Daley and Rahm have been either aging out or elected out, or just doesn't want to be a part of all this fight that's going on. And you're seeing young people come in and say, "Well, I'll do it then."
Well, Congress had its first Gen Z member too, right?
That's right. And Cook County Board also had a very young person just elected, Anthony Quezada. And what is interesting and different in a lot of the cases for young progressives is they are coming from a different organizing background. They are not a member of the old machine who was handpicked and told this is how you do things and you sit on the back bench and wait until it's your turn to do something big. These two people who were elected to Springfield were out knocking like 10,000, 20,000 doors on their own, had very little money to begin with. I believe Nabila eventually got a bunch of support from the Democratic caucus. I think they spent millions in that race because they flipped the seat.
Yeah.
But that kind of energy and self-guidance that you get from going out and knocking doors and hearing from constituents yourself kind of brings a different perspective than it would if you were a hand-picked or like kind of caucus-supported person. So I think they are going to bring a different and interesting perspective. And also just like different generations have different ways of doing politics and interacting with other people.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see how they work with the old guard.
Well, since we've got such a great panel of political journalists with us this week, I wanted to get your take on former Republican Congressman from Illinois, Adam Kinzinger, right? He broke with his party over President Trump's actions on January 6th. He resigned after 6 terms, as we know. His new job is as CNN political analyst. Are you surprised, Tony?
No, I'm not surprised that he's going to CNN. He hasn't been talking to the local press for
A while.
Now, despite our repeated asks to talk to him, and so he's had his eye on the national media for a while, and no, I'm not surprised that that's where he's landed.
Any thoughts, Erin or AD?
I think it'll be interesting to see how he stays involved and stays, or resumes talking to people or having his voice heard.
I haven't talked to Adam Kinzinger, I think, since November of 2021.
Oh.
And he was
toying with a statewide run,
but also extremely calm and relieved that he was not running for the House anymore, because I think he was frustrated all the time, felt like this is not my party anymore. We're not getting the stuff done that I would like to. And also, I think likes talking to the media and being an analyst. So CNN seems like a very natural fit. And then he'll also have his kind of PAC political organization that has been making endorsements and helping kind of more moderate, traditional Republicans succeed.
Well, gang, here's an update. The latest vote for a House Speaker just wrapped. Representative Kevin McCarthy's 12th bid has failed again. But 14 did switch their votes, so there are only a handful of holdouts at this point.
So how many does he need now, we think?
Let's see. How many does he need? I'm not sure.
I feel like it's like 4 or 5
Maybe
more.
4 or 5. Still, that's a lot.
That's a lot. We're going to hit the pause button for just a second here on our weekly news recap, but we will be back with this great panel and more analysis of the week's big stories in just a moment. Stay tuned. But first, over to Claire Lane, a plan to house migrants at a former Chicago school that's been delayed.
Yeah, the city was working to transform the closed Wadsworth Elementary School in Woodlawn into temporary housing for migrants bused from Texas. But according to media reports, residents in the area protested the move, saying the underserved community does not have the resources to support those migrants. Community members also say the city was not transparent about the plan when it scheduled community meetings around the holidays. And also, the physicians treating Buffalo Bills safety DeMar Hamlin say he's made a remarkable improvement following his collapse during Monday night's game. As of this morning, his breathing tube has been removed, and he is reportedly talking. He spoke to the team via FaceTime. Doctors say his neurological condition and function are intact, but that he still has some significant progress to make. And we'll have more on that story during Weekend Edition Saturday at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Those are just a few of the items in the news today. More of Reset continues next. Stay with us.
WBEZ is supported by Steppenwolf Theater, presenting Bald Sisters, an irreverent examination of families that the Sun-Times called moving, funny, and powerful, extended through January 21st. Tickets at steppenwolf.org.
Get your soul fix right here on WBEZ 91.5 tonight at 10. Explore music with deep Chicago roots alongside artists like The Spinners and Al Green. Only on Reclaimed Soul with me, Ayana Contreras.
The year is new, the week is done, the economy goes on. What happened the past 5 days and where things are going next time on Marketplace.
At 4:30 today on WBEZ.
We discuss the first week of 2023, from Kevin McCarthy's historic battle to become Speaker to bipartisan celebration on infrastructure. That's next time on Here and Now.
This afternoon at 2 o'clock on WBEZ.
And WBEZ wants your questions for Chicago's next mayor. Tell us what issues you care most about this campaign season, and we'll ask the candidates to respond ahead of the February 28th election. You can submit your questions pretty easily at wbez.org/Chicago elections. And weather for this day in Chicago, mostly cloudy, a little bit chilly. We'll get to a high close to 35. Right now we've got 28 degrees. Cloudy skies at O'Hare and Joliet, cloudy and 29. In Aurora, cloudy skies and 23 degrees. Coming up on to 1226, rather. This is 91.5 WBEZ.
I'm Sasha-Ann Simons, back now with more Reset and more of our weekly news recap, which, by the way, you can watch now. We're on WBEZ's YouTube page and on the Reset Facebook page. Speaking of social media, I wanted to let you know that your favorite radio show is now on TikTok, too. Yeah, we're doing all the things. So if you're on there, go ahead and give us a follow later at WBEZ_Reset.
Do they make you dance?
All the time.
You gotta do the dances?
I've already done several. Go check it out.
Okay.
All right, let's jump back into the news.
In political campaigns, one sign of who a candidate considers to be their biggest rival or threat is who they go after. Today, Mayor Lightfoot taking aim at Chuy Garcia.
You look at somebody like Chuy Garcia, nice guy, but he has no business being the mayor of our city.
New endorsement in the race for Chicago mayor, Willie Wilson's picked up the support of Chicago alderman and frequent critic of Mayor Lightfoot, Raymond Lopez.
Mayor Lori Lightfoot for the first time going on the attack in her re-election fight with an animated TV ad targeting Congressman Chuy Garcia on multiple fronts.
Our panel to walk you through those stories is Erin Hegarty from the Daily Line, A.D. Quig from the Chicago Tribune, and WBEZ's own Tony Arnold, who we've pulled away from his duties as an editor to get him back on the mic just for you today. All right, so in a moment, folks, we're going to get into the latest in the Chicago mayor's race. The election is next month. Wow, time is flying. February 28th.
I'm not ready.
Well, you better be. But first, AD, you reported yesterday a watchdog found more PPP loan fraud among Cook County employees. What's going on?
Yes. So the Office of the Independent Inspector General, which is the watchdog for Cook County offices, came out with a quarterly report yesterday, essentially singling out 4 more Cook County employees for payroll protection program fraud. Basically, each of these county employees applied for a PPP loan fraudulently, either by saying they had a side business that made more money or they had a side business that didn't actually exist. In some cases, these people were eligible to be fired because they did not tell the county that they had an outside gig. In other times, it was like you were applying for these PPP loans on a county laptop, on county work time, or this is conduct unbecoming. So you applying for this loan that you don't deserve makes the rest of the county look bad. And a lot of these people are in like sensitive positions where they should know better. So it's ethically tricky too. So this is basically the third round of reporting that the IG's office has done, seeking this stuff out, and there is likely more to come. And this is disappointing from government folks who know that the PPP loans were supposed to be to keep struggling businesses alive during the pandemic and not for folks to enrich themselves. And in some of these cases, they were spending their PPP money on vacations or Gucci clothes or car payments or paying down credit card debt.
When you hear stories like this, Tony, what goes through your mind?
Oh, it's just what AD said. It's so frustrating. I mean, it's just like this. You keep hearing these stories of people who I think just either thought they wouldn't get caught or thought they'd get away with it, or I don't know what they were thinking. But yeah, it's just frustrating to keep hearing them come back and come back and come back.
Well, and the scale of fraud, PPP fraud, and other like COVID relief fraud nationally is gigantic. Like some people have estimated at like $65 to $80 billion essentially being stolen from this program. And the enforcement of the fraud has not been particularly strong. The Justice Department, I think, has only taken 192 folks to court for PPP fraud, and they really go after the big fish who are taking kind of multi-billion-dollar payouts. So catching this like 20,000 here, 25,000 there is important, but like probably not getting caught and prosecuted in the long run.
All right, then let's talk about the mayor's race. Things are starting to heat up. TV ads are running. Accusations are flying. Erin, let me put you on the spot. There's about 50 some odd days until Election Day, and you've got your eye on those petition challenges. So tell us, who is still in this race?
So with the petition challenges, so if you're not familiar, like basically you submit your petitions to get on the ballot, and anyone within that jurisdiction that you're running in can challenge your petitions. And that's kind of, thought of to be as how you hold people accountable for the signatures they're collecting. So I've kind of been watching these electoral board meetings where decisions are made on who, actually doesn't have enough valid signatures to stay on the ballot and who does. So one thing I'm really watching is these, for the first time ever, the city will, Chicago voters will send representatives from each Chicago police district to represent them on this kind of civilian oversight council of the police department. Some people who are running for these positions decided to run as slates, which means they collected, together the same signatures and filed them. But I'm waiting to see if a decision will be made at some point, I'm guessing next week, on whether they actually can submit those petitions to run as a slate. And that'll be, precedent setting because this hasn't come up for nonpartisan elections in Chicago before. But it is kind of like...
Interesting.
And it happens like... These petition challenges happen like literally in the basement of a building, like in the pedway, near a subway, and like
a Subway sandwich shop, not like
Subway like wafting into the room, and this is the part of like local government that I enjoy observing. Does it need to be this way? I don't know.
So how many do we still have? Was it 10, 9
for the mayoral race? Yeah. So later today, I think a decision will be made that Frederick Collins will officially not be on the ballot.
Okay.
That's kind of...
And then we'll have 9.
Then we'll have 9.
Yes, we'll have 9.
So that'll be Lori Lightfoot, Chuy Garcia, Paul Vallis, Jamal Green, Cam Buckner, Brandon Johnson, Alderman Sophia King, Willie Wilson, and Rod Sawyer.
Yes.
Nailed it. Thanks, producers, for the cheat sheet. The top contenders at this point?
I think it's safe to say that probably Chuy Garcia has popularity. He has good name recognition. The mayor, Lori Lightfoot, she also has, name recognition. And I think to count her out would be a disservice. But I'm interested to see, how mayoral debates, which I'm guessing there are going to be a lot more coming up in the next 50 some days, how that affects
the rankings,
what people think about these candidates while they're standing or sitting, up on a stage side by side, answering questions for people to listen to.
Chuy, Lori, Willie, Vallis is the kind of top four list I've heard over and over from pollsters, but as my colleagues Greg Pratt and Alice Yen wrote a few days ago.
Yeah.
At this point in the race, Lori Lightfoot was polling at like 3% in 2019.
Right. So do you trust the polls then, given that?
That's a big question. Poll accuracy has been the story du jour in the political world for like the past decade. What can we trust? Who is actually responding to polls? I covered a couple county board races where I was initially told that a candidate, Maggie Trevor, was going to win by 20 points. She eked it out by like less than 1%. I'm going to defer to Tony on what kinds of polls are best to trust and what you should be looking for, because we're going to see a bunch of polls from a bunch of different firms. And Tony has been in politics for a long time and can tell you the kind of things that you should be reading and looking out for.
There was... Du jour is right. It's because there was just a poll in quotes, a survey yesterday released that Cranes wrote up and Daily Line wrote up that it was the sampling was not representative of what the city of Chicago looks like, let alone the electorate of the city of Chicago looks like, I took basically nothing away from looking at that. There's nothing that told me about who's up, who's down. I'd say that what I look at right now for this mayor's race, it's an abbreviated campaign because it's in February, which, whatever. But what I look for, I guess, is organization and cash. And the four that AD you just named they have the cash and they have the organization, and you're seeing that and that play out on in these ads. That it doesn't necessarily make you legitimate, but it does make you more competitive.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of ads, in one prominent one, Mayor Lightfoot goes after Chuy Garcia, questioning his ties to former Illinois House Speaker Mike Madigan. Let's listen to a little bit of that.
What do we really know about Chuy Garcia? Chuy secretly talked with this crypto crook who stole his customers' life savings, then spent a fortune to re-elect Garcia. Chuy cut deals to help himself with the since-indicted Mike Madigan, even while the disgraced speaker faced a federal corruption investigation.
Is this a legitimate line of criticism, or is this just politics, Tony?
No, I mean, Chuy Garcia talked about, he told a reporter that he had met and talked with Sam Bankman-Fried, and then his campaign for mayor had to kind of backtrack that and say, no, he talked to his brother. And so this is, with all the headlines about crypto and FTX, I think that it's not surprising that that's leaving him susceptible to those kinds of criticisms. Does that knock him down a peg in anyone's book? How effective is that? I don't know. Chuy has been in D.C. voting for a speaker for the last 4 days. He hasn't been able to be in Chicago since he's a congressman. So that's I'd be curious to see if he can even make it back tomorrow for one of these forums that's happening. Or if he's going to be stuck in D.C. So there's things like that about his candidacy.
Well, Erin, political strategist Delmarie Cobb told the Sun-Times that it was, quote, desperate for the mayor to get negative so early. What do you think?
I don't know if it's desperate, but this is the mayor's fourth TV ad, and this is the first time that she has gone negative. And yeah, I don't know if it's early or late. Like, it does feel like, the election is quickly approaching, but
it's February.
We've still got a long time before that. I don't know. This was a short kind of ad, but also this week we did see other candidates launch their first TV ads. We saw two from Paul Vallis. He kind of focused on violence reduction and public safety, and kind of tried to take the current administration to task for what they haven't done. Notably, he was standing outside of. My favorite thing is he was standing outside of the Cook County side of the building instead of City Hall, but I don't know if that matters to anyone, really.
Just nerds.
And then Brandon Johnson came out with his first TV ad, too. It was 15 seconds long and just kind of highlighted where he stands on issues and what he's going to prioritize. So, it's not surprising that we're seeing negative ads, I don't think, at this point.
In other news, AD, on the mayor's race, Alderman Raymond Lopez, who recently dropped out of the race, he's thrown his support behind businessman Willie Wilson. Wilson won 13 of 18 black wards back in 2019. So could backing from a Latino alderman give him a broader appeal, you think? Or how much power or clout does this aldermanic endorsement have these days?
I don't think any single aldermanic endorsement is going to be a difference maker for any mayoral candidate, but every little bit kind of helps.
Okay.
The way that Wilson and Lopez described this was kind of like an attempt to recreate the Rainbow Coalition that Harold Washington did. I'm surprised we haven't heard more like Harold Washington comparisons. I feel like that is the one mayoral thing that gets repeated every time. Like, I am the Harold Washington in this race. I have this racial coalition across the city. Every candidate, I think, is going to have to. You can't just win one race in Chicago, one ethnicity, and succeed here. It is going to be about building coalitions. The one thing I am going to be looking at in polling, if we get good polls that are representative of the city, have landline and cell phone, generally aren't internet surveys where people can take it more than once. I am going to be looking at the margins that people can create for themselves to create victory. So there's an assumption that Chuy Garcia might win a significant portion of the Latino population. Will he combine that with the North Side Lakefront, where voting turnout is the highest? How's the black vote going to break out with so many black candidates? Paul Vallis is our only white candidate. Like, there's a lot of marginal thinking that all of these candidates are doing, and I think that's why Wilson made such a big deal out of an aldermanic endorsement that otherwise might not be a big deal.
Yeah. Well, this is about as good a time as any to mention that Reset is actually going to be holding 3 mayoral forums with the candidates on February 7th, 8th, and 9th. These will be in person at colleges and universities around the city, and we are very interested in what Chicago voters between the ages of 18 and 34 specifically would like to see from the next mayor. So if you would like to take a quick survey to help shape those programs on February 7th, 8th, and 9th, head over to WBEZ.org where we've got a great survey for you. That'll be truly helpful to us. All right, Erin, we should mention that in addition to casting a ballot for mayor, Chicagoans will be voting for alderman next month. Can you give us the latest there quickly?
There's 50 wards, so there's a lot of people running for the seat of alderman. Most of them are contested races, so most of them aren't. Yeah, most of them have more than one candidate.
I see.
There's a significant number of aldermen who are retiring or have left, this term. So I think I'm really interested to see how citywide, the city council changes or doesn't change after this election. I think there are some really, interesting races to watch. I think people should, and back to the petition challenge thing, people are slowly getting picked off the ballot. So the 21st ward, I think it had the highest number of
86 candidates in the 21st ward.
And now it's down to 80. So so I don't know, definitely make sure you research who your alderman is current, in the old ward map and the new ward map and who's running, because that's going to affect you.
That's a good point. I'm going to ask you all, have you checked to see if your ward has changed?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? After redistricting some of the wards?
Is every redistricting different map? I mean, I'm on the north side, which didn't change
that much.
Some
of them look so different.
A lot of them look very we have a new 34th ward that snuck up from the south side over to the near west side. We have the 36th ward, the Teeter-Totter ward, which is 8 miles long. Do check your address, figure out where you are at the new ward, and I'm going to give Block Club a shout out because they've started to do ward by ward kind of profiles of candidates to get you started. I'm only now starting to get Oppo research on aldermanic races, and I'm very excited to dig in.
We're breaking down the week's news, and we're kicking off a new year with 3 Chicago journalists, WBEZ's Tony Arnold, A.D. Quig of the Chicago Tribune, and Erin Hegarty of the Daily Line. They're going to stick around, and we hope that you will too, because there are a lot more stories to get to. Yeah, believe it or not. But first, the world's top Elvis impersonators are going to meet this weekend. Claire?
Yeah, we're going to mix it up. We're going to take a break from the politics and talk about Elvis. Impersonators from across the globe are going to compete to be crowned quote-unquote king this weekend in Birmingham, England. This is at the European Elvis Championships and Convention. Hopefuls will perform and judges will sort of award the kingness based on their likeness to the rock and roll icon as well as their musical talents. Also, back to politics, Republican Representative Kevin McCarthy finally moved some right-wing holdouts into his camp, but ultimately fell short of the votes needed to become House Speaker. This was just a few moments ago. 14 detractors flipped, which gave McCarthy some much-needed momentum, though the Republican leader did not gain enough to end that stalemate that has paralyzed the House for days, and it was his 12th attempt. And WBEZ, of course, will continue to bring you updates on this House Speaker situation throughout the afternoon and this weekend right here on 91.5. And here in Chicago, the University of Chicago is launching a new program to help commercialize research and clean tech, data science, and life sciences. The $20 million initiative will be open to startups both inside and outside the university. More Reset on the way next, and at 1 o'clock, we're going to bring you Science Friday. Stay with us.
WBEZ is supported by Big Shoulders Yoga, a hatha yoga studio in Westtown, offering classes designed to empower and support all levels of students in their unique yoga practices. Class schedule at bigshouldersyoga.com.
I'm Peter Sagal on this week's Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. Sean Hayes, plus the Worm King of Buffalo, New York, and the comedy stylings of Mariska Hargitay. That's the news quiz from NPR. Saturday at 10, and again, Sunday morning at 11 on WBEZ.
Lots of people are running to be Chicago's next mayor. Tell WBEZ what question you have for them, and we'll put it to the candidates before next month's election. Ask now at wbez.org/Chicago elections.
On behalf of all of us at WBEZ, thank you to everyone that gave in the past year. Your donations fueled this essential service, and we are forever grateful for your generosity. WBEZ is here thanks to you.
In sports, the Blackhawks are in town hosting the Coyotes tonight at 7:30. Bulls are on the road in Philly. Game time against the 76ers is at 6. Weather for today, cloudy with a high of 35. Right now we've got 28 at O'Hare and Joliet, cloudy skies and 29. This is WBEZ.
This is Reset. I'm Sasha-Ann Simons. And if you're just joining us, it's our weekly news recap. We've been getting updates on what lawmakers are up to in Washington, Springfield, and Chicago. Next, we're going to talk about museums, poetry. Wait, where is this news recap going? Well, you're about to see. We've got 3 smart and savvy guides here with us. Erin Hegarty from the Daily Line, A.D. Quig from the Chicago Tribune, and WBEZ politics editor Tony Arnold. We're also still online, on YouTube, on Facebook. Hi, guys. Before we get to the fun stuff, there are a few other stories that I want to give updates on. Tony, I'm going to circle back to you so that we can circle back to Springfield for just a moment. The state's ban on cash bail was supposed to go into effect at the start of the year. That didn't seem to happen. What is the latest on this SAFETY Act?
The latest is that most of that, the act was very large. There were lots of things that were not related to cash bail that are in effect. But for now, cash bail still exists in Illinois while this is sorted out in the courts. And there was just a scheduled release about the status of that. And it doesn't look like anytime soon we're going to get some results. There's some closure on this.
Mm-hmm.
So for the next few months, cash bail will continue to exist while the courts figure out whether this is constitutional or not in the state of Illinois.
What does this look like on the ground, AD?
So I was scheduled on the Sunday shift and expecting to attend bond court on Sunday, January 1st, the first day of the SAFETY Act.
Great.
And then it was status quo, essentially. So you still had folks getting assigned D bond, which is like a big number in which the defendant has to pay a percentage of that to get out of jail. I bonds continued. It was still as fast and confusing as ever for someone who does not regularly cover bond court, how quickly things happen. Lots of ghost guns. Most of the time when folks were being held on D-bond, it was because they had a ghost gun, which is illegal to possess. And it's gonna continue that way. And for advocates who are backing the SAFETY Act, they're like, this is essentially perpetuating a system that is unfair and unjust. And the longer we wait, the worse things are. And Springfield changed this for a reason, and this delay is unjust.
Erin, you reported this week that CDOT, the Chicago Department of Transportation, put in 7 miles of bike lanes last year, but that still didn't meet its goal. What's the story there?
Yeah, so this was actually a little over 7 miles of concrete curb protected bike lanes. And this is compared to last June. CDOT said it was going to add 25 miles of curb protected bike lanes. And this is like literally a wide curb instead of like a line on the pavement or these like plastic sticks that separate cars from bike lanes. This is a big curb.
It would screw up your car if you tried to go into the bike lane.
Which I still have seen a lot of tire marks on like the Logan Boulevard curb protections. But yeah, so it turns out they only added a little over 7 miles of curb protection compared to the 25 miles they said they were going to add. And CDOT officials said this was due to a material shortage and a 7-week quarry strike that kind of held up this process. But, people have pointed out like other projects got done while they were delayed. Also, faced delays due to these shortages. It's a pretty low number compared to the 25 miles that they were supposed to add. And I'm interested to see if they make up ground this year, because I bike, and it is nice to have that extra curb barrier separating me from cars.
Well, I'm seeing this in aldermanic campaigns, especially on the north side and the northwest side, where there are a lot of bike-related car fatalities. It's starting to pop up in aldermanic races where folks are saying, I support curb protections for bicyclists. We need this to be as safe a city as possible for people on their bikes and pedestrians.
They're becoming more vocal about it.
We had some really terrible fatalities, one involving a family last summer, I believe, or last fall. In any case, it really led to this resurgence of we have to protect these lanes. This can't be a car-centric city. We need ways for people to get around safely that isn't just in a car.
So, Erin, could we be getting more this year? Is it likely?
We're supposed to. CDOT, so the goal was to make aside from the curb protected bike lanes, there are bike lanes protected by these plastic delineators, they call them. They're sticks in the ground. And so they're supposed to replace all of those with these concrete curbs by the end of this year. So I think, progress will be made, or, we'll see more. I just don't know how many more curb protected lanes we'll see.
AD, you have been reporting on an effort to stop the city of Chicago from poaching corporate headquarters from the suburbs, luring them to set up downtown. So what's the story there? How big of a problem has this been for the burbs?
It's been pretty big. My old colleague at Cranes, Claire Bushy, did a great story a while ago about just how many corporate relocations Mayor Rahm Emanuel had under his belt. It was like his big, one of his favorite types of ribbon cuttings was a corporate relocation. And a lot of the big ones came from the suburbs. There was Motorola from Schaumburg, Kraft Heinz from Northfield, McDonald's from Oak Brook. This was back in like 2015, 2016. And this ticked off suburban municipalities who liked counting on these jobs. And at one point, all the suburban municipalities kind of got together and were like, we should form an economic development group to prevent this from happening. And instead, what we saw this week was the city of Chicago and the collar counties all getting together to say, just kidding, we are now taking a regionalism approach where Chicago will no longer try to poach suburban headquarters, and we're all going to work together to attract global businesses to this region, because companies really don't care, for the most part, where exactly they're located in a region. They just want access to talent. They want access to the stuff they need, whether it's, highways, trains, talent, access to our 2 national labs. So basically there was a commitment this week that the city, Cook County, and the collar counties were all going to work together under the banner of World Business Chicago, which used to be like the chief stealer of suburban HQs, and say, we're all going to try to work together.
The chief stealer.
The chief stealer. Whether this works is going to require a lot of trust. And the same day I reported this story, my colleague Robert Chanik was reporting on what's going to happen to Allstate, who sold their big giant corporate headquarters in the suburbs and have kind of been in this interim space in the meantime while they shop for something new and figure out what the future office looks like. And tucked in that story was a line that Chicago is competing to get that headquarters going forward.
Of course.
Which isn't technically a poach, but it's still like marginally poachy.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I promised museums. Tony, what was the last museum you went to in Chicago?
Oh, I went to the Shed a week ago today.
Did you?
I did.
Did you have fun?
I did.
Did you touch the sturgeon?
No. But I watched the penguins for a very long time because I was with a young person who didn't want to do anything other than the penguins, and so I was down on the basement just watching the penguins do their thing.
What about you, AD?
I think the last museum I went to was the Art Institute, which I love. Never gets old.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Something new every time, and even if there isn't anything new, you could take something away from something you've looked at over and over.
What about you, Erin?
I'm a big fan of the Museum of Mexican Art in Pilsen. I love the art there. It's also a very manageable museum, I feel like. I can
You're not
see
missing out.
everything and not be overwhelmed by do I need to see
the Field Museum is like that for me.
Very, very old pieces of jewelry or new modern art.
Yeah. No, I went to, that was the last museum that I went to as well, as the Mexican Museum, and it's great. And there's also some more good news for all of us, because there are quite a few days where local museums are actually going to be free this month. Now, our producers have put together that list for us.
Nice.
Isn't that fantastic? We're going to hear all of that in a second. But folks, I want you to count how many of these museums you've actually been to in, say, the last 5 years. All right?
During COVID?
Yeah.
Here we go.
The Adler Planetarium, free for Illinois residents every Wednesday, and always free for military personnel, teachers, and Museum in the Park and Chicago Park District employees.
The Field Museum, free for Illinois residents January 10th, 11th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 24th, 25th, and 31st.
Live in the land of Lincoln? You're in luck. The Art Institute is free for you every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, starting on the 9th.
At the DuSable Black History Museum, Illinoisans enter free on Wednesdays, and military and first responders come on in anytime.
On Tuesdays, no fee to visit the Museum of Contemporary Art. The MCA also has free admission for Illinois teachers, visitors with disabilities, and their caretakers, active duty military, police and fire department personnel, and veterans.
Looking for a dolphin show? Or a giant crab? The Shed Aquarium is free to residents from the 12th to the 16th this month. and is free or discounted for a number of other groups. Just check out the website.
And finally, there are plenty of museums that are free all the time.
The National Museum of Mexican Art in Pilsen.
The Garfield Park Conservatory.
The National Museum of Puerto Rican Arts and Culture in Humboldt Park.
The Lincoln Park Conservatory.
The Ukrainian Institute of Modern Art in Ukrainian Village, and the Chicago Cultural Center right downtown.
All right. I want to compare notes real quick. I've been in Chicago for 2 years. I'm pretty proud to report I've been to 6 of those. 6 on the list. What about you, Adi? You're looking, did I beat you? There's no way. Why do you, come on.
I'm embarrassed.
Girl, what's your number?
So here's the thing. I'm a creature of habit.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm a repeat offender.
Oh, you just go back to the same
ones. I'll look at those penguins. I'll touch that sturgeon over and over. So I've been to Field Art Institute Shed, Garfield Park Conservatory, Lincoln Park Conservatory, Cultural Center is a great place to work. But a bunch of these other, I've never been to Adler.
I've been on the front steps. I mean,
That counts.
I wanted to count that. That would be 6.5.
No, I feel
Reset helps me
ashamed.
make my rounds.
I feel ashamed.
Erin, what about you?
Same. I think it was close to 5, but that's like counting the conservatories, which I'm at often.
Yeah.
Adler Planetarium, space kind of freaks me out. So
Face your fears in 2023, Erin.
So I should really go. I should take this opportunity to go there. I do remember, what do they have, like the Atwood Sphere that you can go in, and it's like the world's oldest like planetarium. You're like in a dome. And
Sounds
you're like,
amazing.
Yeah.
Sounds incredible.
Never been.
Tony?
So we're talking about like the last 5 years. I mean, right now I've mostly been at places that involve animals. So my number's very low here of those that just listed. I'm thinking I've been to 3 in the last year.
Wow.
Or 5 years.
I crushed
But
you
I have
all.
others.
You did.
But I have others that aren't on there.
No.
But
no.
all right, fine.
Science and Industry wasn't on there.
Yeah.
I need to know if they have free museum days because I love it.
They don't, but you'll have to Google that because we are out of time. We've been talking with Adi Quig from the Chicago Tribune, WBEZ's Tony Arnold, and Erin Hegarty from the Daily Line. Thank you so much. And thanks for taking part in our short museums quiz.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good weekend. That's it for Reset. The show is produced by Meha Ahmed, Linnea Dominic, Brenda Ruiz, Micah Yasin, Claire Hyman, Michael Liptrot, Andrea Guthman, Andrew Merriweather, and Sarah Stark. Dan Tucker's our executive producer, and Ethan Schwab is our engineer. Monday on the show, a former speechwriter joins us to dissect the messaging that we're hearing from the mayoral candidates ahead of the February 28th municipal election. Plus, we're going to hear from Chicagoans about the interesting and sometimes eye-opening activities that they do to get them through the winter, like swimming in Lake Michigan. I'm Sasha-Ann Simons. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great weekend. We'll meet again soon.